Look, I think that Bitcoin it's the technically superior asset in the world. It's digital gold. And if I had to figure out how to invest a treasury, I'd have to go through, do I want to own cash? Do I want to own gold? Do I want to own an index of stocks or bonds or commercial real estate? And the ideal thing to own is one 1/21 of everything there's ever going to be, and if Bitcoin is like Manhattan in cyberspace, then we bought 71,000 city blocks of it. And it's a long duration safe haven asset. You can't debase it. It's not a fiat derivative like a bond or a stock. And so if you're looking to the long term, out like 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, then owning Bitcoin is like encrypting your monetary energy in a way that will preserve it without any degradation over the long term. So I feel great about it.
I want to go back to go back to the beginning for a second. I was reading about you and your childhood. Your father was in the Air Force. Is that correct?
Yeah, my father's career, non-commissioned officer in the United States Air Force, 30 years. I lived on military bases, Air Force bases, my entire life as a youth. We moved around here and there. I lived in Japan. I lived in New Zealand. I lived in Colorado. I lived in Nebraska. Lived in Florida. Lived in Ohio. Here and there, in Virginia.
Do you think that had an impact? Because I think, as the go where you're treated best people, and I look at people who have this international upbringing, who move around. I even think for myself, we moved around the same city growing up, from suburb to suburb. I almost think that was a little bit of rootlessness, nothing compared to you, but I feel like what you experienced, perhaps that was the impetus for this contrarian way of thinking and being such an innovator. Is there something about that international upbringing that contributes to where you are today?
I think so. I mean, I think it was really a good formative experience to see other cultures and to travel the world. I think that opens your mind to things. I thought it was very positive influence to live on Air Force bases. Air Force is a very forward technology thinking organization. There are airplanes around. They're always thinking about the future. I thought that was useful. I discovered science fiction very early on, and I read everything by science fiction authors like Robert Heinlein, and that had an impact on me. So the combination of all those things, and Air Force is about space shuttle and test pilots and astronauts and going to the moon and going to Mars and looking out beyond yourself and not being provincial. I think those are all helpful. They cause you to keep an open mind toward things.
Those are values that shaped where you are today, growing up on the bases.
Yeah, I thought it was really great to grow up on bases because it's a very merit-based egalitarian structure, which sounds kind of odd to say because everybody's got ranks. But the point is, at the end of the day, there was a profound belief that the most meritorious would advance, and you felt safe, and everything was based upon integrity and duty and trust. And it's like it's a felony, I think, to commit adultery on a military base, So this idea that you cheat on your wife or something and it's a crime, it's like very, very interesting. They had different sets of values, as opposed to, living off a base where you've got lots of other politics that impinge on your views as a young child.
Is Bitcoin partially successful, perhaps in response to the fact that maybe the West, maybe the world in general, but it seems particularly the West, is much less meritocratic today, where people aren't supposed to get ahead of their merits, and those who do are demonized, it seems, in the West. Is Bitcoin somewhat of an answer to that, do you think, or what's the relationship?
I think Bitcoin appeals to those that are on a quest for truth or integrity. If you're an engineer, you appreciate the concept of conservation of energy. And if you're a mathematician, you appreciate the idea that 2 + 2 always equals 4. And so the mathematical beauty and the conservation of energy and the laws of thermodynamics that are sort of embedded in Bitcoin appeal to those who wish to design beautiful things that work, especially when they see things around them that aren't working.
I think it's a great response. You're an MIT guy. Is that your background?
Aerospace engineering, aeronautics and astronautics at MIT.
I said, this guy's 1,000 times smarter than I am. So, but I want to talk, as you talk about tech, you talk about your background. For people who don't know, you run MicroStrategy. It's a multi-billion-dollar company. What is it that MicroStrategy does?
MicroStrategy is an enterprise software company that sells business intelligence to about 5,000 large enterprises all around the world. Business intelligence software is used to design sophisticated analytic systems to extract insight from data. So banks use it to calculate credit risk, retailers use it to calculate marketing and merchandising activities. Anybody that has large sums of data trying to figure out what to do next would typically create some kind of business intelligence application. And we have a set of software tools and servers that we sell to all those organizations everywhere on Earth.
And when did you start the company?
1989.
Okay, so over 30 years the company's been going. You're still running it. And you were, as I recall, originally a Bitcoin skeptic. Is that correct?
I think everybody starts that way. Yeah, I was a Bitcoin skeptic. In 2013, I thought it was going to go the way of online gambling, but I didn't really understand it, and I didn't really need it in 2013. And it was a much younger, more immature asset and a more immature network. So I think it took me till 2020 for me to need it. And then until you need it, you're not going to put in the effort to understand it. And luckily for me, by the time I needed it and by the time I understood it, it had matured to be a much stronger network. I think the pandemic is a catalytic event and accelerated transformation in a couple of areas. You know, Zoom went from 10 million users to 400 million users in weeks. Like we embraced remote work and video conferencing, and probably we leaped forward a decade. And in the same way, in March, we had a set of lockdowns, which really impaired Main Street assets and operations.